And a very good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Hockey Night on Broad Flyers pregame show. Today, the Philadelphia Flyers play a matinee game between the Chicago Blackhawks as they meet for the first time this season. Thanks again for joining me today. I am your host, James Scorza. For the first time in quite a while, the Flyers will play a matinee game for the first time in almost a month as the Orange and Black come in this game today. But before we go any further, we are on Facebook, we are on Twitch at Hardcore Sports Network and Stream Punk Entertainment. So if you want to join into the program, by all means, like I said, I'm your host, James Scorza, with you. As the Flyers coming into this game today, losing two straight and are under 500 and have an 8-10-2 record on this season, and seventh in the Metropolitan Division on the NHL season. As for Chicago coming in today, there are 5 games under 500 and are in 7th in the Central, coming into this game today with a 7-12 and I believe 1 record against opponents after a good win on, I believe it was on Thursday night against the Florida Panthers. But like we always do on this very important program, we talk about the recap of the previous game as the Flyers, like I mentioned, last time they played against each other, the last time the Flyers played a game here in South Philly was on Wednesday night as the Flyers took on the Carolina Hurricanes. As we always do, the recap of the previous game, the first period came basically 30 seconds into the game. The presence of Carolina will get right into the game, as a shot by Jaden Chatfield will be getting credit for the first goal of the game, and it will give Carolina an early 1-0 lead just 30 seconds into the game. Later on in the first period, the Flyers will chip away at the puck, and also the presence of Hurricanes goaltender Pyotr Kochetkov stood tall, and the Flyers won the shot battle in that first period, but not getting no goals in front of Pyotr Kochetkov, as they had a shot advantage of 11-10, but remained 1-0 Carolina after 20. To the second period we go, as now the Flyers looking to try to get a response, and they will find it 2 minutes into the second stanza. And skating with the puck was Ryan Penguin, who would blast one home and gets the Flyers on the board for the first time this season. Ryan Penguin will get credit for the goal and will tie the game up at 1 apiece. Later on in the second, Carolina will get the equalizer once again this time. But before the Hurricanes will get the equalizer, Ivan Fedotov standing tall, but also the Hurricanes would try to get many opportunities on the net, but Fedotov standing tall, and after 40 minutes, it stayed at a 1-1 tie. To the third period, this is where the reels came off of the Flyers as the Carolina Hurricanes attacked on full display in this third period alone, as it was just 1 minute into the third like it was in the first period. A shot by Hurricanes forward Sebastian Aho trickled through it in the net and beat Fedotov to give the Carolina Hurricanes a 2-1 lead early on in the third period. Later on in the third, as Carolina was shooting the Flyers 8-1 around the 14-minute mark of regulation, and a one-timer by Dmitry Orlov deflected in by Jordan Staal, and the Hurricanes captain made it a 3-1 Carolina lead. But a couple minutes later, the Flyers would try to get a good response, but would not get it on this night. And a couple seconds later, it was instead of making a 3-1 Carolina lead, a pass from Sebastian Aho setting up Joe Roslovic to give the Hurricanes a 4-1 lead, and will win the game by that same margin, 4-1 the final, Wednesday night in South Philly. As we set the stage before we go tonight's game, let's we're checking into our very important program. Our good pal, Mitch Kopsky, joins us once again on the very important program. What's going on, Mitch? How you been, buddy? Like always, we're always on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Twitch, we're on all the social media platforms. So by all means, you can check in to say, let's go Flyers, and also what's going to be the biggest key of the matchups of all today. But let's get into the key matchups of the game today, as the Flyers, like I mentioned, coming into this game, 7th place in the Metro Division, as Chicago is 7th in the Central, right behind, shockingly, Steven Stamkos and the Nashville Predators, which, by the way, Nashville will be playing Philadelphia on Wednesday before the Thanksgiving break. Excuse me, as we check into our marquee matchups of the game today, the key matchup for the Flyers is today. Losing tough games are a very, very concern for this team, but the good thing is about it, too, they always find a way to bounce back after a disappointing loss. They never had a disappointing losing streak going into this season. You will always think about, okay, you lose a game against Carolina, but how are you going to fare against? Like, the losing streaks are not the big issue here. The big issue in this game today for the Flyers, this should be an easy piece of cake game for the Flyers because Chicago's not one team that's not going to be looking at this to say this is a get-right game for them. I mean, they just won against the Stanley Cup champions a couple months ago. I'm sorry, a couple days ago. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. These matinee games are always confusing me because I'm not a day person, but I'm doing it today just to give me some poise and also give me some positivity along the way. But as far as the Flyers is concerned, today will be a good matchup to get a get-right game for the Orange and Black. Like I mentioned, the Blackhawks are one team that are really on the outside looking in. They're not the same Blackhawks team like they were back in that early 2010 era, which we lost to them in 2010. They won a Stanley Cup in that shortened NHL lockout season in 2013. And in 2014-15, captured their third Stanley Cup in 6 seasons. But like I always said, there is no Patrick. Like I said, this is a different Chicago team. There's no Jonathan Toews, there's no Patrick Kane, and there's no Duncan Keith or Brent Seabrook. So I would be sure today that will be the biggest key for the key matchups in this game today. So for me, that's going to be how good the Flyers are. If they play against a very good Chicago team, if those components were there, like they were capturing Stanley Cups every year, then I would be like, okay, this is going to be a big matchup. But Chicago is like not the same team. They are looking for another. I mean, I guess former Flyer Luke Richardson is on the hot seat because he's been dealing with a lot with the players and the presence. And like the only thing that I took out of this Chicago team as I looked at the sheet that in this key matchup for this game today, I mean, Connor Bedard is okay, but he's not great. I mean, he's still trying to find his footing. And their captain is like Nick Foligno, and I don't even know who their alternate captain is. But like I said, Chicago is a completely different team as they were in years past. So don't think this is an easy game today, but this should be an easy game in my opinion because Chicago is not one of those teams that is going to be really making a lot of noise here in this game today. But like we always do, like before we go any further, let's check out who is trending up and who is trending down. As like always, we checking our key matchups in the game and our players to watch. So I basically said Connor Bedard and maybe Nick Foligno along the way, but that's about it. That's going to be telling you all you need to know. I don't even know what the circumstance of who's going to be the big X factor in this game today. So it could be either one of them, like I mentioned. But who's trending up and who's trending down on this game today for the Orange and Black? Well, the good news is who's trending up is that the Flyers got a great shot advantage, like I mentioned in the highlight reel. Basically did a great job on that first period, out shooting a very good Carolina team 11-10. It was a great first period, but then the wheels fell off in the second and third. But Carolina's going to be one team that's going to be really dangerous later on in this season. But for me, Chicago is one of those teams that will look at this game against, like they beat the Stanley Cup champion, the Florida Panthers, and say, oh, we beat the Cup champions. We can do whatever. We can probably come into Philadelphia and make sure we take advantage of it. You don't want to make sure Florida smell. You want to make actually no. You don't want to. You want to. You really want to do is make sure that Chicago's smelling themselves a little bit. Like they just beat the Stanley Cup champs, and they're thinking like they're coming into Philadelphia, and they're thinking that they just beat a very top-notch team. Make sure. I really do believe this. I mean, you don't want to come into this game today against Chicago and say that okay, like Chicago's coming in and they're thinking like they're like wise guys thinking that they're going to come in here today and says, oh, this is when we won our first Stanley Cup back 14 years ago, 15 years ago. Like I mentioned, a different team that they had back in the day. Like I mentioned, there is no Patrick Kane anymore. There is no Jonathan Toews. There's no Brent Seabrook. Hell, there's not even a Dustin Buffalo on this team or even like a Christopher Stieg, if you know what I mean. But the thing I'll take out of it, too, is that if the Flyers can get a good advantage on this, I mean, always I remember there was a time when you start a game early and you get off to a real good start, that's going to be the biggest key tonight here too. I mean, they've been doing a great job with getting early starts in these couple games. Probably all the same here today against a very good. I keep on thinking Chicago is like still. That's the thing. You don't even know how bad Chicago is because you're thinking about how great they were back in that early 2010 era. But like I said, I keep on saying to myself, Chicago's not a good team anymore. Stop saying they're a good team, okay? But all joking aside, this should be a good game for the Flyers here today. I mean, probably a get-right game for the Orange and Black. So for me, who's trending up is that the Flyers will probably make sure that they'll be smelling themselves a little bit and thinking that they came off a very good win against Florida a couple nights ago and make sure they come back to reality here today. But who's trending down? But on the flip side of Chicago really being trending down, that's the biggest key more than anything. It's not a trending down for the Flyers, but it's actually a good thing for the Flyers, rather, for who's trending down because Chicago's just really bad. I mean, they're just really, really a bad hockey team. I mean, they had Joe Quenneville, who's been great. They had a couple of coaches here and there after Joe Quenneville weren't as great, wasn't as effective. I mean, they got a former Flyer, Luke Richardson, who's been a key factor, but the surprise to me for Chicago about who's trending down is their first overall pick in Connor Bedard. So for me, that's going to be the biggest key I take out of this game today is that how can you forecheck the puck and also keep the puck out of Connor Bedard's puck and stick. And if you try to do whatever you can to make sure he gets uncomfortable, like I mentioned, Chicago's just like one team that there's not a lot of like X factors in this game for Chicago. So for me, that's going to be the biggest key to take out of it. So if you can keep control of the puck and also keep control of like what the Flyers do today. I mean, the good news is that they also had a very good winning record against Chicago, but the last couple of years they lost a couple games here and there against Chicago. So for me today, this will be time to say, okay, Chicago, this may be your game that the Flyers will get right. So for me, who's trending down, it's more that the good news is for who's trending down for the Flyers is that Connor Bedard's not living up to the hype. So let's keep it real with that and more precisely than that. All right, let's check out our injuries and scratches to this game. Like we always do, the same injuries for the last couple games or so. Emil Andre still out with a mid-body injury. Cam York, upper body, still looking to trying to get back to the basis of coming back to like healthiness. He's still missing the game with an upper body injury. Sam Erson's still out today with a lower body. Jamie Drysdale still out with upper body. And the healthy scratches for the game today. This is kind of a surprise, but I guess this is probably easier said than done. Scott Laughton and Anthony Richard are the healthy scratches for this game today for the Orange and Black, as Scott Laughton is not having a very good season for the Flyers, but it's good to know to try to get him a couple games just to get. I mean, like I said, I mean, this is not. I mean, we always talked about the presence of Matvei Michkov being benched, like John Tortorella was being a little harsh on him, and I say that in quotations because everybody was trying to think that this was a bad idea, but he benches everybody, even Anthony Richard, who had a very good game a couple nights ago. I mean, he's still. I mean, he's going to just. I mean, even Scott Laughton, who's not having a good season, maybe this will be a good time to sit him down for a little bit, just to clear his head. And the same thing with Anthony Richard, just to try to do whatever they can to. I mean, maybe it's not probably like a bad thing that they're scratched. They probably got a couple players coming back today. That's a positive. Maybe that's the one thing that they're doing for most importantly than anything like that. But like I said, Scott Laughton and Anthony Richard today are the healthy scratches in this game today for this matchup against the Blackhawks. All right, let's check out our goaltender matchups and the starting goaltender matchup today. For the Flyers, it will be Alexei Kolosov back in goal today for the Orange and Black, who is 0-4-0 this season and has a 3.71 goals against average. I would really hope he gets his first win today. That'll be even more bittersweet for him against a very good Chicago team. Did I just say a really good Chicago team again? Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess I'm still thinking about that 2010 Stanley Cup that I'm living rent-free in my head, that puck still hasn't trickled in the goal, and that lost us the Stanley Cup. So someone's going to probably tell me at the end of the day, it says, James, I know you're obsessed about Chicago back in 2010, but they're not the same team. Anyways, and for the Chicago Blackhawks, I guess Antti Niemi's in goal today for the Blackhawks. No, I'm just kidding. It's Peter Mrazek who's in goal for Chicago, who's 6-8-0 this season and has a 2.66 goals against average. As for the Flyers today, that will be the big key matchup today to get Alexei Kolosov a win against a very bad Chicago Blackhawks team. All right, for my predictions, it's basically easier said than done for the Orange and Black today. This will be definitely a great game to get a good win against a struggling Chicago team. Now I'm getting it. I'm just breaking stones. But this is a good game. This will be a good game for the Flyers to get a get right game today. For me, I think the Flyers will win today. I think that's going to be a lot of positivity for the Orange and Black. For me, I think that's going to be what the Flyers need to do today is that they have to do whatever they can to make sure that they can get. I mean, this is probably the second time this season that they lost 2 or 3 games. If they lose 3 today, this will be a lot more than they had all of last season. But that's my predictions, and that's why I say the Flyers will win today against a Chicago team that, sure, they beat Florida, but they're probably going to come back to reality today. And the Flyers will get an easier win today, and we'll move on to another team that is an odds-on championship Stanley Cup contender, like in Vegas on Monday night, and that should be a biggest key more than that, and I'll get you all set for that. But anyways, that is a wrap for the Hockey Night on Board Flyers pregame show. Remember to stay tuned after the game at Stream Punk Entertainment for the post-game show. I'll be joined, yours truly, with Pat Bernard and Joey Marks immediately when this game is all over. Thanks a lot for joining me today. I'm sorry that everybody that can't be chiming in today and all that. I know it's kind of easier said than done, but until then, thanks a lot for joining me today. I am your host, James Scorza here. I hope you guys enjoy the game. Until then, I'll hope to see you guys on the post-game show. Until then, thanks a lot for joining me today, and we will see you next time.